The twin moons of Aegis Prime cast a soft violet glow across the sprawling domes of the Interstellar Academy of Harmony. It was a place of impossible cooperation, where clawed and scaled, feathered and furred, bioluminescent and carbon-born species learned side by side. The Academy's motto, unity through understanding, was etched above every gate, though few truly understood how fragile that unity really was. From the observation decks, the world looked serene. Students drifted through the illuminated courtyards, exchanging laughter and lessons in dozens of tongues. The evening air shimmered faintly with plasma lamps and pollen from the gardens of Aerolith. But deep below the Academy's shining towers, beneath the level where the ambassadors' children studied diplomacy and future officers trained in xenotactics, there was a chamber forbidden to almost all. A containment vault, a cage for something that didn't belong among the hopeful. Inside, behind a wall of reinforced energy fields, was a creature the Academy had no right to keep. It was catalogued as Specimen K9X, though every guard whispered a different name for it: the Predator. It was 8 feet of muscle and instinct honed by 1,000 generations of hunting. Its mandibles twitched in rhythm with its breathing. Its dreadlock-like tendrils shifted when it scented movement beyond the barrier. The only human who had ever dared to step within 20 meters of it and survive was Cadet Ryan Holt. Ryan was young, barely 20, and far from home. One of only 4 humans in the Academy, he was known for his odd calmness, for his way of watching rather than speaking. He'd been assigned to xenobiology and volunteered for containment maintenance. Perhaps out of curiosity, perhaps out of defiance, and in those quiet hours near the observation chamber, something unthinkable had begun to happen. The Predator had stopped lunging at the glass. It had started watching him back. The alarm shattered the peace of the evening like a blade through glass. "Containment breach, Sector 7? The voice boomed across every hall, echoed by the sound of shattering metal and the shriek of plasma welds being torn apart. The violet light flickered red. Students scrambled for the emergency shelters as sirens blared in 7 different languages. Ryan was in the upper dormitory when the tremor hit. He felt it through the floor first, deep, growling vibration that sent a chill through the air. He turned toward the window, saw a plume of steam rising from the lower sector, and his heart froze. "Sector 7, he whispered. "That's the vault." He was moving before thought could catch up, grabbing his utility harness, his translator module, the stun pistol he wasn't even authorized to carry. He sprinted through corridors filled with panic and flickering lights, passing alien cadets fleeing in the opposite direction. "Cadet Holt," shouted a Valkyrian instructor, her scaled face glinting beneath the alarms. "Containment has failed! You're going the wrong way. Someone's got to seal the lower doors," he shouted back. She stared at him for a fraction of a second, the kind of look that weighed fear against duty, and then turned to guide her students to safety. Ryan disappeared down the stairwell toward the chaos. The vault corridor was filled with smoke and the scent of scorched metal. Half the containment doors had collapsed inward, gouged open from within. The heavy atmospheric stabilizers hissed under the sudden change in pressure. Ryan slowed his pace, now pulse pounding in his ears, and activated the low light visor of his helmet. He saw bodies. Security drones split in half, their cores leaking blue plasma. He saw claw marks deep enough to slice through alloy. And then he heard it, a sound that didn't belong to any machine. A growl, deep low like thunder forced through bone. The kind that hit you in the spine before your brain could even register fear. Ryan crouched behind a collapsed beam, the glow of his visor casting faint blue light on the floor. Then movement, a blur of shadow, passed through the fog. There it was, the Predator, free. Its armor plates were cracked but functional. The stealth field flickered intermittently, revealing flashes of its mottled skin, the ridged crown of its skull, and those cold, calculating eyes. It carried no weapon, but it didn't need one. Its claws were already wet with blood. Ryan's breath hitched. He knew there was no outrunning it, not here. Not in these narrow halls. But then, as he pressed his back to the wall, his boot nudged something small, a containment marker. A metal tag with faint engraving. "Juvenile Specimens 2 transferred to Research Bay 3A. His heart sank. They weren't alone in here, the cubs. The 2 small ones the scientist had brought in days ago for behavioral analysis. He had seen them once, tiny versions of the beast with wide, curious eyes and stubby mandibles. He remembered how they had hissed softly when he brought them food through the barrier. They hadn't looked like monsters then, just lost, and now their parent was loose. He heard a scream echo from the far end of the hall. Not human. A Tloth cadet caught in the wrong place, wrong time. The sound ended abruptly. Ryan felt a pulse of nausea twist in his chest, but he could lead it away, or reach the cubs first. He sprinted toward Bay 3A, sliding through a half-sealed blast door. The lights flickered and died as he entered. Emergency lamps painted the room in crimson. Rows of observation tanks lined the walls, cracked open from the pressure surge. Tools and consoles lay scattered across the floor. And in the center, beneath a tipped-over crate, movement. Two small figures trembling, the cubs. They chittered softly when they saw him, mandibles quivering, not fearfully, almost in recognition. Ryan knelt, lowering his weapon. Hey, easy there, he whispered, voice shaking. You remember me, don't you? The one who fed you. One of them tilted its head, clicking curiously. The other limped slightly. He reached slowly into his satchel, pulling out a ration pack. The smell drew them closer. They inched forward, claws scratching against the floor. And then the air changed. Every hair on Ryan's neck stood up. A shadow filled the doorway. The predator stood there, massive, blood slick, its breath fogging the air. The lights caught the reflection of its eyes, burning gold, focused entirely on him. Ryan froze. The cubs whimpered softly and scurried behind his legs. The beast took one step forward, growling low, ready to strike, and then it stopped. It looked past the human, at the cubs. Its entire body language changed. The growl cut off, replaced by a choked, guttural sound that almost resembled confusion. The hunter's chest heaved, its claws flexing. Slowly, so slowly, it stepped closer, lowering its head toward the cubs. Ryan didn't move. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but something deeper held him there. Because in that moment, for the first time, he realized it wasn't a monster. It was a parent. The cubs chirped softly, pressing against his legs. The predator's gaze followed the movement, its mandibles twitching, its breath steadying. Ryan could see the glimmer of recognition in those alien eyes, a recognition of scent of kin. Then the creature looked up at him. For a heartbeat, predator and prey locked eyes, and the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. The silence stretched sharp and heavy as a drawn blade. In that dim red light, the great predator and the human stood motionless, their breaths misting into the same trembling air. The predator's muscles rippled beneath its scarred hide, every instinct screaming to attack. Yet something else, older, deeper, anchored it in place. Its gaze kept flicking between the trembling cubs and the small, fragile figure shielding them. Ryan Holt could feel the vibration of its low growl resonating in his chest. His finger hovered near the trigger of the stun pistol, but he didn't raise it. One wrong move, he knew, and this entire room would become a slaughterhouse. The cubs made a soft trilling sound, pressing against his legs. They peered up at their towering parent, eyes bright, voices uncertain. One gave a plaintive hiss, half recognition, half fear. That sound broke the tension like sunlight through storm clouds. The predator's mandibles twitched open. It crouched low, the gesture almost ritualistic, lowering itself until its massive head was level with the cubs. A sound emerged, deep, rhythmic clicks that echoed through the bay. The cubs responded instantly, chittering back. Ryan's heart hammered. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the emotion. Relief, grief, recognition. Slowly, the predator extended a clawed hand toward the cubs. They bolted forward, scrambling into its arms, pressing against its chest plates with high-pitched squeaks of joy. The creature exhaled, a sound that almost resembled a sob. For several long seconds, there was nothing but the quiet sound of reunion. And then the spell shattered. Sector 7 visual acquired. Movement detected. The voice boomed through the comm system above, followed by the whine of energy weapons charging. Ryan's blood ran cold. The response team had arrived. He turned toward the shattered doorway and saw the blue shimmer of Academy security forces forming a perimeter. Dozens of figures, armed Valkyrian troopers and human specialists, leveled plasma rifles into the room. Behind them, a containment drone hovered, primed to release anesthetic gas. Contact confirmed. Bark Commander Sathran. Predator-class specimen sighted.
Engage and neutralize, no.
Ryan shouted, stepping forward, raising his arms. The nearest trooper hesitated, surprised to see a human standing beside the creature. Cadet Holt. The commander's voice crackled through the helmet speakers. Step away from it, that's an order. And Ryan didn't move. He stood between the predator and the line of rifles, the cubs still clinging to his boots. They're not attacking, he yelled. It's not hostile. Look at them. The commander advanced, visor glinting in the red light. That thing butchered 3 guards and half our drones. Move aside before it tears you apart. Behind Ryan, the predator rumbled, a low warning growl. The sound vibrated through the metal floor, a thunderous promise of violence should any weapon fire. Ryan glanced back and saw the cubs clutching tighter to their parent's chest. The hunter's eyes locked with his again, not with anger, but with something far more complex. There was recognition there, and gratitude. He swallowed hard, turned back to the troopers. If you shoot, he said, voice low but steady. You'll hit the cubs. They're its young. It's protecting them. The commander hesitated. That wasn't in any tactical manual. His finger wavered on the trigger as he processed the words. Scan confirms 2 smaller signatures, said a technician from the drone interface. Biological match juvenile specimens. They're alive. The silence that followed was thick with disbelief. Hold fire, Sethran ordered reluctantly. Maintain position. Inside the bay, Rayan dared a small step backward, closer to the predator. He could feel its body heat radiating behind him, like standing near a living furnace. He spoke softly, unsure if it would even understand. It's all right. No one's going to hurt them. The predator tilted its head. Its mandibles clicked once, almost like acknowledgement. Then, with one swift motion, it shifted the cubs onto its back, positioning itself between them and the soldiers. Its body loomed over Rayan protectively. The soldiers outside tensed again. Commander, said one of the Valkyrians quietly. It's shielding the human. The words hung there, almost absurd. Rayan turned, looking up at the towering alien. He could see dried streaks of blood on its armor, scars etched deep across its chest plates. Yet its eyes were steady, studying him with the same cautious awareness he felt. He realized something in that moment, something profound. This was not a beast acting on instinct. This was a parent calculating survival. And somehow it had decided that this small human was not its enemy. Minutes dragged by. The air was thick with static tension. Cadet Holt, the commander, finally said, voice trembling between command and confusion. You need to move clear. We're going to re-establish containment. Ryan's gaze darted to the collapsed ceiling vents. You'll kill it. And the cubs. You can't just gas them, they'll suffocate. They slaughtered our personnel. They were experimented on, Ryan shot back. Wouldn't you fight to escape? The troopers exchanged uncertain glances. Even the Valkyrians, known for their ruthless efficiency, seemed unsure. The predator shifted, its gaze flicking between the two sides. Its claws tightened around the cubs, but it didn't attack. It was waiting, judging the room like a battlefield. The drone hummed ominously. Ryan could see the pressure indicator rising. He made his choice. He stepped forward, placing a hand on the predator's chest plate. The surface was warm, almost pulsing. We have to move, he whispered. They won't hold back much longer. The predator turned its gaze down, mandibles flexing. For a moment it seemed to weigh his words. Then, with a guttural growl that echoed through the bay, it turned toward the service tunnel at the far end. Ryan's translator pinged uncertainly, struggling to parse the alien frequency. One word barely came through, translated as follow. They moved fast through the shadows, Ryan, the predator and its cubs slipping through maintenance shafts that twisted beneath the academy. Behind them, distant alarms rose again as the security forces began pursuit. The tunnels were ancient, built when the academy had been a fortress instead of a school. Pipes hissed with vapor, dripping condensation that caught the red glow of emergency lights. The cubs moved lightly, chirping softly between bursts of silence. Ryan's mind raced. How had it come to this? Hours ago, he'd been a cadet studying alien sociology. Now he was running alongside one of the galaxy's most feared hunters, helping it protect its young from the very institution that claimed to represent peace. He glanced up at the creature's face as they ran. There was focus there, but also fatigue. Blood seeped from a wound on its shoulder. One of the tranquilizer darts had grazed it earlier. Without thinking, Ryan pulled a coagulant patch from his kit. Hold still, he said quietly. The predator stopped abruptly, twisting to watch him, its mandibles flared in confusion, ready to strike. Ryan slowly held up the patch. Medicine, he said. Helps heal. Long pause. The cubs peered from behind its legs, clicking softly. Finally, the predator extended its arm, wary but compliant. Ryan pressed the patch gently against the wound. The gel hissed as it activated, sealing the bleeding tissue. The creature grunted, a sound not of pain but acknowledgement. It looked at him again, and this time the stare held something entirely new. Respect. Behind them, the echoes of approaching boots and drones filled the corridor. Through there? Ryan whispered, pointing toward a narrow hatch at the far end. It leads to the outer ridge. The predator nodded once. It scooped the cubs onto its back, then gestured for him to follow. The translator pinned faintly again. Together, Ryan followed without hesitation. As they disappeared into the darkness, a final explosion rocked the tunnel behind them, security drones sealing the entrance with plasma fire. Dust rained down, and then silence. They emerged into the open night. The academy's domes glowed faintly below, sirens wailing in the distance. Above them, the twin moons of Aegis Prime hung like ghostly eyes. The wind carried the metallic tang of ozone and burning circuitry. Ryan leaned against a rock outcrop, chest heaving. The predator stood beside him, Cubs nestled against its armored torso. It raised its head toward the moons, letting out a deep resonant call that echoed across the valley, part mourning, part victory. Ryan listened in silence. For the first time, he saw it not as a creature of fear, but as something ancient, powerful, and painfully alive. And as the echoes faded, a realization took hold. They weren't done running. They were just getting started. Dawn on Aegis Prime was a strange, haunting thing. The light didn't rise. It bloomed, swelling across the horizon in shifting hues of silver and green, filtered through the twin moon's atmosphere. The cliffs shimmered as the planet's magnetic storm stirred, scattering faint auroras across the morning sky. Reinhold blinked against the cold wind. He and the predator and its cubs had spent the night hiding among the obsidian spires that crowned the valley beyond the academy. From here, the once majestic campus looked small and fragile, a hive of distant sirens and flickering shields. He had never seen it from the outside before, never realized how much it resembled a fortress. The cubs were curled up beside him, faintly snoring. Their armorless hides reflected the aurora's light in ripples of bronze and gold. One of them stirred, nudging his hand with a soft click. He smiled faintly and fed it a piece of ration bar. The predator stood a short distance away, motionless against the horizon, watching. Its silhouette was carved against the wind, heavy dreadlocks swaying slightly. From time to time, its gaze swept the skies, scanning for drones. Ryan had come to recognize its body language. Every twitch of the mandibles, every subtle shift of the claws meant something: curiosity, irritation, vigilance. It was strange how alien gestures could start to feel familiar. He finally stood and walked toward it. "They'll be sending hunters soon," he said quietly. "I don't think we can stay in one place." The creature turned, its gaze meeting his. The translation module at Ryan's collar flickered, struggling again to interpret the layered growls that followed. Only one word came through clearly: hunt. Ryan frowned. "You mean they'll hunt us?" A pause, then a shake of the head. It pointed one clawed finger toward the east, where the mountains darkened into mist. Another guttural phrase followed: "We hunt them." Hours later, the sun-veiled sky turned to copper. The group was moving through an abandoned transport conduit, a relic from the days when Aegis Prime had been a mining colony. The tunnels still hummed with faint electromagnetic residue, enough to scramble scanners for a while. Ryan followed close behind the predator, his torch beam cutting through the dust. "You could have left me," he said suddenly. "Why didn't you?" The creature didn't look back. It made a sound, not quite words but low and resonant. The translator struggled, then produced a half-garbled phrase: "You protect young. Honor debt." Ryan exhaled slowly. Honor. That word, simple, ancient, carried weight even across species. But there was more to it than that. He sensed calculation in the predator's movements, as if it were following more than instinct, as if there was purpose to where they were heading. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast subterranean chamber, and Ryan froze. Rows of stasis pods lined the walls, hundreds of them. Inside floated shapes, not just predators, but species from across the outer rim. The cold light from the pods bathed the chamber in ghostly blue. "What is this?" Ryan whispered. The predator stepped forward, growling deep in its chest. It touched one of the pods, claws scraping against the frost-covered glass. Through it, Ryan saw another of its kind, unmoving, suspended in forced sleep. The truth hit him like a punch. "They've been capturing them," he murmured. "Not studying, harvesting." The Academy's voice echoed suddenly through the chamber, a crisp broadcast reverberating through hidden speakers. "Cadet Holt, you are trespassing in restricted facilities. Stand down and surrender the specimen immediately." Ryan spun, scanning for cameras. The voice was Commander Sethron's, cold, precise. "You lied to us," Ryan shouted back. "You said this was a peace academy." "You're experimenting on sentience. The research serves a greater purpose," the commander replied. "Understanding predatory evolution allows us to prevent future wars. We contain aggression before it spreads. Be caging living beings. Be saving lives," Sethron countered. "The universe must have guardians capable of understanding violence and controlling it. You, of all people, should understand that." The words reverberated off the metal walls. Ryan's fists clenched. He remembered his own father, a soldier who died in the outer colony raids fighting an alien war humanity barely understood. The Academy had promised something different, a future built on coexistence. But here, buried beneath its halls, lay its true heart, fear disguised as science. He looked back at the predator. Its eyes glowed faintly in the gloom, not rage now but sorrow. It pressed a clawed hand against the stasis pod again, letting out a low, mournful hum. The cubs huddled close, sensing its grief. Then the hum deepened, rising in pitch, until the pod's glass shattered. One by one, the other pods began to rupture, the predator's growls harmonizing with the vibration of their energy cores. It was using some kind of resonant frequency. A hunting cry turned weapon. Ryan shielded his face as shards of ice and vapor burst outward. Shapes began to stir within the pods, freed creatures gasping their first breaths in years. The Academy's voice crackled with alarm. All units. Breach containment, Vault Delta! Lethal force authorized. Ryan turned, adrenaline flooding his veins. They're coming, we have to move. But the predator didn't run. It stood tall now, framed by the light of 100 awakening kin. The cubs chirped excitedly at its feet. When it finally looked back at Ryan, the translator flickered again. Clearer this time. We go home? And in that phrase, Ryan understood. The predator wasn't escaping for survival. It was rescuing what the Academy had stolen, its people. A thunderous explosion rocked the tunnel entrance. Troopers poured in, weapons drawn, their lights cutting through the haze. The newly awakened creatures roared in unison, a chorus of rage that shook the chamber. Ryan ducked behind a console as plasma fire erupted. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The air smelled of ozone and burning metal. The cubs screeched. Huddling behind their parent, he looked up and saw the predator charging forward, not wild, not reckless, but disciplined. Each strike was deliberate, controlled. It moved like a warrior reclaiming honor, not a monster seeking revenge. And it fought not alone. The other freed hunters joined, forming a semicircle that drove the troopers back in panic. For the first time, Ryan saw the truth of their cody's strength and protection, not slaughter. Still, the Academy's forces were many and they carried heavier ordnance. Drones swarmed overhead, firing concussion pulses. One blast threw Ryan to the ground. His visor cracked, pain seared through his arm. Ryan. He didn't realize the translator had projected his name until he heard it repeated, from the predator. It stood between him and the advancing soldier's body, absorbing the brunt of plasma bursts. Armor cracked, smoke rising. But it didn't fall. It turned back once, eyes locking with his, and spoke a single word. Guttural but clear. Run. Ryan hesitated only a moment before grabbing the cubs. He sprinted toward the emergency lift at the far end, glancing back as the chamber filled with chaos. The last image burned into his mind, the predator. Towering, bleeding, defiant, standing among the freed hunters, roaring as energy fire erupted around them. The lift door sealed. The sound faded into silence. The lift carried Ryan and the cubs upward through kilometers of stone and steel. His breath came in short, ragged bursts. He pressed his hand to the wall, whispering to himself, "Don't die down there. Please." When the doors opened, he found himself in an observation dome overlooking the eastern plateau. From here, he could see the faint glow of explosions below, a distant storm of light. Then his wrist pinged. A transmission scrambled, weak but unmistakable. "Ryan Holt. This is Commander Sethrin. You've made a mistake that will doom us all." Ryan stared at the screen. "What are you talking about?" "Their kind carries an encoded bioweapon within their blood. A defensive mutation. Uncontrolled release could infect every life form on this planet. You've unleashed extinction." The channel cut off. He felt the world tilt beneath him. Was that true? Or another lie to justify slaughter? He looked down at the cubs, small, breathing, innocent. Their eyes met his, full of trust. He couldn't believe that these living creatures were a threat to life itself. No, he knew who the real threat was. The ones who believed they could control every form of life by fear. Outside, the wind howled against the dome. The cubs pressed against him for warmth. He wrapped them in his jacket, staring out at the night, waiting for a sign that their parent had survived. And far off, deep in the burning valley, a roar answered, faint but alive. The kind of sound that told him the story wasn't over yet. The storm began before dawn. Dark clouds boiled across Aegis Prime's upper atmosphere, alive with lightning and ash. The Academy domes shimmered beneath their failing shields, sirens wailing in layers of metallic chorus. Somewhere deep within, alarms howled for containment, evacuation, and silence all at once. And high above it all, inside an observation spire scorched by the night's bombardment, Cadet Ryan Holt stared into the chaos, torn between two worlds. He had brought the cubs with him, hidden beneath the collapsed thermal array. They slept fitfully, making soft, trilling sounds whenever thunder rolled through the glass. Each sound twisted his heart tighter. His wrist-com blinked again. Another encrypted channel, another attempt by the Academy to reach him. He ignored it. He couldn't trust them. Not anymore. He'd seen the frozen bodies beneath the Academy, cages pretending to be laboratories. Compassion turned to calculation. But still, Sethrin's last words haunted him. A bioweapon within their blood, extinction. Could it be true? Could these creatures, so fiercely protective, carry the seed of destruction? The door hissed open behind him. Cadet Holt, came a cold, mechanical voice. Ryan turned sharply, weapon half raised. A figure stood in the doorway, not a soldier, not quite a machine. Dr. Elira Voss, the Academy's senior xenogeneticist, framed by flickering sparks. Her pale face was streaked with exhaustion, her uniform torn and stained. But her eyes, calm, clinical, were steady. "You've caused quite a disturbance," she said softly. Ryan didn't lower his weapon. "You've been experimenting on them, on living beings." "Yes," she said simply. "And now you've released an entire containment wing. The board will consider that genocide." "They were slaves, Voss." Frozen, dissected, terrified. Her gaze flicked toward the cubs under the blanket. "And yet you protect them." "They protected me first." Dr. Voss stepped closer, her boots clicking faintly on the glass floor. Lightning illuminated her face, serene, analytical. "You don't understand, Cadet. The predators are not what you think. They're not a single species, they're an engineered collective. A weapon line created during the War of Ascension long before humanity left Earth." Ryan froze. "That's impossible. The Ascension War was." "Yes, that's what we made you believe." She approached the console and activated a hologram. Blue light flooded the room, displaying ancient data logs. Images flickered, genetic helixes, battlefield schematics, and old Earth symbols, military insignias long forgotten. "You see, long ago, humans tried to create guardians that could fight in any environment," she continued. "Creatures bred from predatory DNA across multiple species, enhanced by adaptive evolution. They were sent into deep space, but something changed. They evolved beyond control. Their creators vanished." Ryan's throat tightened. "You're saying humanity made them?" "And the Academy's purpose," she said, voice low, "was to study that legacy, to understand what humanity unleashed upon the stars." The storm outside growled, thunder shaking the tower. Rand looked at the sleeping cubs, their chests rising and falling softly. "You made monsters, and now you're trying to fix your mistake by killing them." Dr. Voss sighed. "Be understanding them. You think compassion alone saves civilizations. It doesn't. Knowledge does. If their blood truly contains a mutagenic virus, containment is the only rational choice." Ryan stepped closer, fury trembling through him. "You call this containment? You froze their children alive?" For the first time, the doctor's composure cracked. "Do you think I don't know what I've done?" she hissed. "Every night I hear them. Every time I look at the data, I feel the weight of it. But duty demands we choose the lesser evil." "Then your duty is blind," Ryan said quietly. The cubs stirred at his voice. He knelt, brushing their heads gently. "They've shown me more humanity than you ever have." Before Voss could respond, the tower shook violently. The glass panels above cracked like ice. A deafening roar followed, not thunder this time, but something else, something alive. Ryan rushed to the window and saw it. The pred alive. It was leading dozens of freed hunters up the ridge toward the Academy. Smoke rose behind them, the ruins of containment sectors burned like dying suns. The creatures moved in formation, not as beasts but as warriors reclaiming sacred ground. Dr. Voss's face turned white. "They're coming here. Then maybe they want justice," Ryan said. She pressed her wrist, calm urgently. "Initiate Omega Protocol. Prepare orbital strike." Ryan lunged, snatching her arm. "No. There are civilians still inside." Her eyes were wild. "If that bloodline escapes the planet, every system in this sector dies." He hesitated, torn between instinct and doubt. Every word from her was wrapped in logic, but beneath it was fear. Deep human fear. Then the wall behind them exploded. Glass shattered inward as debris rained down. Ryan was thrown across the room. When he looked up through the smoke, a massive shadow filled the opening. The predator had arrived. It stepped through the breach with a sound like rolling thunder. Armor scorched, one shoulder still bleeding. Its gaze swept the room, finding Ryan first, then the doctor. The cubs squeaked joyfully, darting toward it. The hunter knelt, gathering them close. Its breath came heavy, but its eyes burned with purpose. Dr. Voss staggered back, clutching her datapad like a weapon. "It understands us," she whispered. "It remembers." Orion stood slowly, moving between them. "It came here because it knows this place isn't safe. You'll destroy everything trying to contain it." The predator looked at him. The translator flickered to life. "Home. You come." Dr. Voss frowned. "Home. You can't wait. It's asking you to go with it." Ron met her eyes. "Maybe it doesn't trust anyone else. Don't be naive. If it leaves orbit, the board will label you a traitor. Humanity will hunt you down." He glanced at the cubs, then back at the doctor. "Then humanity needs to learn who the monsters really are." The tower shuddered again. A crimson warning light bathed the room. "Orbital strike confirmed," said the AI through static. "Omega in T-minus 5 minutes." Ryan's stomach dropped. They're going to wipe this fruit. No, Sethran, abort! There are still personnel? The signal cut off, replaced by a rising hum in the clouds above, the unmistakable charge of an orbital cannon. The Predator turned toward the sky, mandibles flaring in defiance. Then it looked back at Ryan and held out its hand. The gesture was unmistakable. A choice. Ryan glanced at Dr. Voss, torn between loyalty and conscience. She stared at him, trembling. If you go with it, you'll never come back, he smiled faintly, eyes steady. Maybe that's the point. He took the Predator's hand. The creature grunted approval, lifting both cubs with effortless strength. It turned and leaped from the broken tower onto the cliff beyond. The ground thundered beneath their feet as they raced down the slope, the academy burning behind them. Overhead, the sky split open, a beam of pure white fire descending from orbit. The Predator threw Ryan forward, covering him with its body as the beam struck the complex. The explosion was a sun being born. The shockwave tore through the valley, hurling ash and debris for kilometers. When the light faded, the academy was gone. Only a smoking crater remained. Ryan coughed, dragging himself upright. The world was haze and silence. The cubs clung to their parent, alive but shaken. The Predator rose slowly, scarred and burned. But standing, he turned toward the horizon, where faint lights shimmered beyond the mountains, a hidden valley untouched by destruction. He didn't need a translator to understand. Their home was there. He looked back one last time at the ruins of the academy, the lies, the fear, the arrogance, and felt something harden inside him. The real war wasn't between species. It was between what life was and what fear had made it. They began the long journey into the mountains, silent except for the wind. Each step carried the weight of everything lost and everything reborn. And as night fell again on Aegis Prime, Ryan Holt walked beside a creature once called Predator, no longer enemy, no longer myth, but ally. The valley of the Ash Mountains slept beneath a red dawn. Mists coiled through the ravines, veiling the ruins of old temples and carved monoliths, their surfaces etched with glyphs that shimmered faintly in the first light. The air was cold, not lifeless but ancient. It breathed with memory. Ryan Holt followed the Predator through that valley, boots crunching over frost and dust. Behind him, the cubs padded close, small but fearless. Every sound echoed across stone, swallowed by silence older than either species. The creature, taller now in the pale glow, its armor half shattered, paused at a cliff's edge. Below them, a vast network of caverns spread open like a scar in the planet's skin, lit from within by veins of bioluminescent green. It raised one clawed hand, pressing it against its chest, then extended it outward. A gesture of return, of homecoming. Ryan's translator clicked softly in his ear. This was ours long before the war. He said nothing, only what his figures emerged from the shadows below, dozens of them. Hundreds, even. Adult hunters, scarred and powerful, each bearing the mark of their tribe. But none raised their weapons. They stopped at the foot of the cliff, heads bowed, mandibles flared in solemn recognition. The Great One, Ryan's companion, descended with slow, deliberate steps. The cubs darted ahead, trilling joyfully. When their kin saw them, the silence broke into a low, resonant hum. A sound that wasn't warlike at all. It was mourning. Relief, a song. Ryan followed in silence, every instinct screaming to stay hidden, but something in that moment silenced fear. The air itself felt sacred. When they reached the base, the oldest of the hunters stepped forward, her dreadlocks streaked with silver, her armor adorned with the bones of long-dead enemies. She placed one claw over her heart and spoke in a voice that vibrated the very earth. The blood returns. Her gaze found Ryan next. Her nostrils flared, her eyes narrowed. And with it, the Maker's kin. Ryan stiffened. Maker's kin. The translator flickered. You carry their scent, the first humans. The ones who made and abandoned us. He looked to the Great One, the warrior who had fought for him. It gave a single nod, confirming it. Ryan's mind reeled. Humanity's forgotten creation now standing before him, thriving in exile. Then you've known about us all this time. The matriarch tilted her head. We watched. We hunted. We waited for the Makers to remember. But they did not. Until now, a low rumble rose through the ground, drums, deep and rhythmic. Hunters encircled them, and Ryan realized it wasn't a threat. It was ritual, a welcome, or perhaps a trial. The Great One turned toward him, eyes burning like twin suns. They will ask, why you? Why protect cubs? You answer. Ryan swallowed. What if I say the wrong thing? The hunter leaned close, mandibles clicking softly. Then I kill you before they do, mercy. Despite himself, Ryan almost laughed. Comforting. He stepped into the circle. The matriarch's voice echoed again, deep and commanding. Human stepped forward. He obeyed. The hunters loomed around him, silent, towering, the air thick with tension. In their eyes, He saw curiosity in centuries of pain. She extended a claw tipped with a droplet of her own blood. Why do you shield our spawn when your kind burned our skies? He took a breath, steadying his voice. Because your children did what most of mine wouldn't. They trusted a stranger. They showed me something worth fighting for. I couldn't let that die. The matriarch tilted her head. And if the spawn carried death within them? Ryan looked at the cubs. Then I'd still protect them. Because fear shouldn't decide who deserves to live. A murmur rippled through the circle, low and uncertain. The matriarch's gaze softened fractionally. You speak with heart, not command. He nodded. I was trained to follow orders. But sometimes orders are wrong. Silence fell. Then, slowly, the matriarch turned to the Great One, the warrior who had once been caged. You defied your blood oath to shield prey. Why? The Great One straightened, spreading its arms wide. He is not prey. He hunted fear. Its gaze drifted toward Ryan. He carries fire of first war, but no chains. The matriarch's mandibles clicked in deep thought. Around her, hunters lowered their weapons. Then she drew a small blade from her belt, ancient, blackened by age, and extended it toward Ryan. Take it. He hesitated. What is it? The memory of debt. Once cut it binds. Ryan accepted the blade. Feeling its cold weight, he raised it instinctively to his chest. And what happens if I refuse? The matriarch smiled, a rare, unsettling expression. Then the old war begins again. He nodded once, and pressed the blade to his palm. Blood welled. He let it fall onto the dirt. The predator warrior beside him did the same, its blood mingling with his in the dust. The earth hissed softly where they mixed, glowing faintly with golden light. The matriarch's voice rose in a growl that became a roar. Then it is sealed. The covenant of hunters, blood for blood, honor for honor. The crowd erupted, not in rage but in thunderous approval. Drums echoed from the cliffs, torches flared to life, painting the night in crimson and gold. Ryan stood dazed, feeling the ground pulse beneath his feet. The cubs ran to him, pressing against his legs, purring low in content. He knelt, smiling faintly. Guess I'm family now, but peace never comes without a price. From the horizon, the sky began to burn again. Bright streaks of fire cut through the atmosphere. Drop pods, the Academy's surviving ships. The strike team had followed the orbital bombardment signal. Humanity was coming. The Great One's head snapped up. Hunters, return to shadows. War comes. Ryan's pulse spiked. Wet. If they see this place, they will see graves. The matriarch growled orders. Warriors began to melt into the caverns, taking the cubs with them. Ryan grabbed the Great One's arm. You can't fight them. They'll carpet bomb the valley. Then we fight underground. No, Ryan shouted. If this becomes another massacre, the Covenant dies before it begins. The predator turned, eyes narrowing. Then stop your own kind. Ryan looked toward the sky, the dropship screaming closer. He felt the blade still slick in his hand, the mark of his new oath. He nodded once. I will. He climbed to the ridge. Wind tearing at his clothes, smoke rising from the burning horizon. Above him, sleek human vessels descended like silver sharks. He raised his wrist, calm, switching to open frequency. This is Cadet Ryan Holt of Aegis Prime Academy, he said into the roaring wind. Cease fire. There are civilians in. Cadet Holt. A voice crackled back. You're alive. Hold position. We're securing the target zone. Negative, he yelled. The predators are not hostile or static. Then a cold, unfamiliar tone. They've taken you hostage. Hold your beacon steady. Extraction will neutralize the threat. Ryan cursed under his breath. You're about to commit genocide? No response. Only the hum of targeting locks warming up. He looked down into the valley, where the predator stood beside the cubs, watching silently. The warrior raised one arm in salute. A farewell or a promise. Ryan pressed a single command on his wrist, calm, manual override. Beacon misalignment. He turned it toward the sky and let the targeting signal drift far to the east, away from the valley. When the human strike came, the mountains erupted in fire miles away. The shockwave shook the ground but spared the sanctuary. By the time the dust cleared, the fleet had moved on, convinced the target was destroyed. Night fell again, soft and star-filled. Ryan stood at the valley's edge, the Great One beside him. The cubs slept between them, small and peaceful. Humanity's stars, and felt an ache he couldn't name. They'll come again someday. The predator nodded slowly. Then we hunt together. Ryan smiled. Together. The creature extended a claw, touching his shoulder, a gesture of respect. Then it turned, fading into the shadows with its kin, leaving him beneath the endless sky. For the first time in his life, Ryan Holt didn't feel like he belonged to just one world. He was the bridge between hunter and human, predator and prey, fear and understanding. And as the wind whispered through the ruins, he whispered back, almost to himself, maybe this time we got it right.